Hello and yay to a new episode of Shittywebcomics Weekly. As usual, these episodes are brought to you by our backers on Subscribestar, which is linked in the description below. You can support us and get access to a bunch of our secret videos. Normally, this would be, just us covering a webcomic, but as well as this episode being backed by our Subscribestar backers and brought to you by and funded by and all that stuff. This is also in part we wanted to do this episode as a form of payment to somebody who's working on coloring one of my comics, Villains of the Snow Sea #2. He's doing the coloring for just the rest of the pages that weren't colored yet, and he said as payment you could review Monster Hunt and Lone Star 2. So I guess we'll be doing that.
Holding our comics hostage.
Yeah, so holding our... Well, he said, I was like, I was willing to pay him in money. I'll still pay him, and I'll still give him some money for doing it. But at the same time, I guess we'll also do these videos, and in fact, we'll make these videos public, because our last review of a Lone Star, or our review of the first Lone Star was a legendary episode.
We made it worthwhile.
Yeah, kind of traumatizing in a way to other people, of course.
But it also made it so that it was no longer a worthless piece of shit.
Yeah, it finally had some value. Now, this is another comic called Monster Hunt, and I was not at all familiar with this, but apparently it came out a few years ago as part of the supposed first lead of Comicsgate Comics or something. I have no idea. I have no idea what it's about. I have no idea why it exists. But when I looked at it, I was like, "Oh no!"
We gotta fucking make sure to mention that right up front. Is that we haven't read? I haven't read this. This will be like a live reading.
Yeah, this is a fresh new live reading of this comic, and I gotta say, right off the bat, it's got that generic ugly comic.
I already hate
style.
It. I'm looking at the cover and it's already terrible. First off, because the cover is cut in half for no reason.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be, I think, a wraparound cover where it's like this is the front and then the next one is the back. And it's like, okay, whatever.
If you do a wraparound cover, this isn't how you do it.
But also, just with the font, it's like the two fonts for the word monster and then the word hunt are clearly somebody just took a font that came with Windows and then another font that came with Windows, or it was on freefonts.com or some shit like that.
It's something that you get somebody to draw a cover. You don't do this with your font.
Don't
have them draw it.
Yeah, have them. Yeah, don't have them fucking like take the font and be like, oh, now I'm gonna just add some effects. There, I'm done. It's like, especially if you're the pro artist, these guys act like they are. They act like they're the professional artists.
And, sure.
I don't know. It's just looking at the cover is wearying because this is the exact kind of comic that I instinctively ignore when I see it at the comic store of any kind.
And this is just the first half of the first fucking cover. There's multiple covers also. In fact, it's the first 4 pages.
Yeah, that's another thing. One of the things we said right off the bat before Comicsgate ever was a thing, back when we were inventing the idea of Comicsgate years ago, the first ever people
we destroyed before we dumped in the garbage can where it belongs.
We were saying that one of the things that you need to stop doing, you need to stop right off the bat, if you are actually in any way a person who actually likes reading comics, you have never bought a variant cover in your life intentionally with the intent of owning a variant cover. I bought a variant cover once in my life of something that was like, oh, this is a variant cover, and it's like, okay, I don't care. It was in the dollar bin for $1 anyways. I don't give a shit what it is.
That's the most important part of it is, did you buy the original? Did you
Yeah.
buy the original? Did you buy a variant
Yeah.
cover?
Or really, did you buy the book? Because if you're buying the variant cover, you're not buying a comic book. You're buying a cover, essentially. You're
You're
buying a
buying empty hype.
singular piece of art that's on the front. You're buying the cover of a book. You're not buying a
Not even
comic book.
buying
You're
art.
not buying a book to read. You're not buying a comic. You have no interest in comics. You just have interest in empty consumerism, and which is what this kind of comic is meant to appeal to, the empty consumerist American comic book audience. Um, the same as any of the other, the same as any of the characters, any of the other comics made by any of the other people featuring the characters made by the people who made the characters in this comic, any of that kind of shit. But I'm just right off the bat, it's like rip off of Captain America, rip off of Doctor Manhattan, who was a rip off of fucking Captain Atom or something. I don't know, fucking some other DC character, and then just generic character, generic character, generic character, and
Literally just these their characters here. There's just people standing around here in completely normal uniforms with body armor,
yeah,
and they have different hair. And it's like these aren't your main characters. Why are they even on the cover
yeah, they're,
then?
they're just guys. If this guy has two knives or something, um,
This
this
one
guy,
guy
the
has
Captain America
cyclops
ripoff
eyes.
has a very. Now I know that getting technical details of things is tricky, but the blade of the knife is going in a different direction from the hilt of the knife, and that's something I notice pretty commonly because it's not easy to get that right, but it looks pretty
Not
off.
easy to
It
get
doesn't
it
look
right, which
horrible,
is why
but it
you
looks
should
off.
do it. Don't do it if you can't get it right.
Yeah. Why is this, is that his main weapon or something? And it's like
That's
he can't use
that's
a
his
shield,
superpower.
obviously, so he has to use a knife, I guess. Who gives a fuck
It's
then?
just a completely generic knife too, not a special knife. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
basically a
just
large
knife.
knife.
His weapon is knife. Grab weapon. Um,
That's who he is, aside from being an incredibly generic Captain America
mhm.
ripoff.
And speaking of generic, the other part of the cover has the jawbreakers on them, who are not only generic, but two of them are just straight up Daredevil and Spider Man, and then the other two guys are just super strength guys, and a
There's
guy with a
nothing
mask
special
too,
about them
apparently.
to begin with. They don't even really look that distinct to begin with at
Well,
all.
they're not interested. Even like there's two aspects of this. There's the visible visual design of the characters, which is utterly generic. One guy's just like he's got a vest and pants, and then this guy has a suit, and this guy has a red mask, and this guy has a green suit
You
and with a
definitely can't
vest.
tell because they do have superpowers. You can't actually tell what they are. Like this guy looks like he's got a fistful of lightning or something. Would you believe that it's actually supposed to be some kind of spectral silly string?
Yeah, I think, or yeah, that's right. I think this is actually supposed to be the Spider-Man guy because Richard C. Meyer, Yakuk, who completely is not only late on several campaigns, but also took hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lawsuit against the SJWs, and just late last year completely backed off on that. So all that money got flushed down the toilet, even though it was obvious that it was going to be complete fucking waste. But he's just a big Marvel fanboy. He would pulp everything if they even offered him a job sweeping the floors at Marvel, and that's something that even people who knew him personally agreed was true. So if you don't agree with that, that means you don't actually know what the guy's like in real
I think
life.
this cover was actually drawn as two separate fucking pictures.
Yeah, it looks like it just doesn't work. Anyways,
Because if you look at the middle, the part in the middle where the pictures would join are missing. There's like a basically
well,
an
I
entire
yeah, who knows? And
section in
it's
the
like, is
middle.
this part would have to be the front for the top one. The top one would have to be the back or something. And it's like, who cares? And I don't even know. Are these guys fighting each other? The jawbreakers are against fucking
Translating each
these.
other, even though there's no reason for that if you know I mean, I don't know much about the characters, but I think I know everything about the characters, and there's no reason for them to be fighting each other. Plus, they're completely surrounded. They're both fighting each other, but at the same time, they're both flanked. They've allowed themselves to be flanked by zombies.
Yeah, just utterly incompetent. They're zombies or ghosts or zombie ghosts, kind of like in the classic Half-Life hero beginning, but also
Instantly superior piece of work.
yes, a
The
superior,
Half-Life
better written. Also,
better written, more enjoyable. If you want to see some real quality work, go
yeah,
and watch the video. It's like a fucking. It's not even Source Filmmaker. It's like a Half-Life Machinima.
it just Gmod. It was just Gary's mod originally, which
Yeah.
helped inspire Valve to make Source Filmmaker. That's a much more interesting story. Talking about that is way more
Yeah.
interesting than any of
Can
this
we talk about
because
that instead?
yeah, looking at this is every bit the most generic comic book. This is something that you wouldn't even see in the dollar bins because they would just throw it in the garbage. It's like, yeah,
13-year
nobody's
old
ever going
would
to
have
buy this.
scribbled this
It,
onto the inside of their Trapper Keeper binder.
yeah, if this were a comic that didn't have the whole Tom McDonald effect, as Mersch calls it, where it's like the talent into this is utterly devoid. It's just shit Z grade, low IQ retardation, but it's got the same politics as us, so we're gonna say it's really good. It's the sort of the way that people say that guys like Steven Crowder is really funny, and he's actually painfully unfunny, and possibly also a drug addict, and along with a lot of other questionable activities behind the scenes. But people pretend he's funny because they're right wing. They have the same politics. The left has been doing that for years as well. The thing is that the left has almost through attrition gotten like better writers through. But of course, none of them are really going to be writing for comic books. Some of them, there are some good creators, leftist creators making good comics that are kind of leftist at least, or at least the creators are like fucking Brandon Graham for the Prophet reboot that he did. Those were excellent comics, and he's just full on completely Moonbat.
Moonbat wacko, but it doesn't come through in the comics so much.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising too. But
Like,
also,
you could
it's like,
almost
hey, it
say
doesn't
that
matter.
it contradicts his own beliefs.
There's a lot that can be said about Saga, but Saga, for all of its many many faults, is still better than this because it actually has things like characters or themes. Things that the people who wrote this don't have any
Actual
consideration
script,
of.
actual story.
Yeah, like a character who has a personality or at least personality traits enough to make them two-dimensional. Whereas the characters in Jawbreakers, if you remember from Jawbreakers, you could see right there on the page, or also from our first review of or our review of the first Lone Star, there was no characterization at all. It wasn't even one-dimensional character. It was
Not even the main character. Usually in that kind of
yeah,
situation where you got like an ensemble, it's at least the main characters fleshed out. In that case, there was just nothing.
yeah. He
Nobody.
he didn't have a personality. He didn't have goals or desires. He didn't want for anything, not even for a glass of water, as one of our peers, Kurt Vonnegut, would say. Kurt Vonnegut would definitely never see any of the creators of these comics as his peers, of course.
They certainly aren't. It doesn't matter how he sees them. They're
Also,
not his
this
peers.
guy with the fucking electric silly string powers, is it just me or is his head way too huge for the rest of his body? This fucking arm his right arm looks not only at a weird angle but at a weird size. It's
Is it
really
safe
kind
to
of
assume
bizarre. It looks like the
that
body
this
doesn't
art is
fit right.
bad? A lot of this art is just like a bunch of rookie mistakes.
But
I
it's
mean, like
also just fucking
if this
stupid.
comic was 50 cents, I would say, okay, fine. You know,
Yeah,
it's not
maybe if I was
professional. Not
really
perfect.
into this kind of comic, I would pay 50 cents for it. But any more than that is a horrific ripoff. I
You
think they
know,
charged at least $25 for it, though.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it was like so much money, just such a ridiculous amount of money. You would see it as nothing but a grift,
Hmm.
which it is. There's also a lot of veins going on that don't make sense.
Yeah, the weird, confusing veins
Everyone's got extremely veiny veins, but they're not really headed in the right direction,
for the right
not
reason. They
appropriately.
look more like they're 80 years old and just have fucking problems with their vascular system.
They got Cymbeline blood burn.
And again, see, this is why originally we weren't gonna fucking. Somebody sent this to us, and it's like, oh god, it was like, hey, maybe we'll do a video about it. And getting just through the covers, I was like, I don't even.
Exactly.
I immediately lost interest just looking at the
Because
covers
again,
because every part of
the
this is
covers.
generic and devoid of creativity.
Here's another thing that I have to bring up. At least with this wraparound cover, it's like, who do you think's the most important character? Well, there's the fucking Sko Captain America. Then there's like a old skeleton person. I guess that's definitely the villain, and he's got two villains around him. And then on the other side is black shirted guy with fucking glowing silly string. I guess those are the most important characters based on the framing. Then you go to the second cover and then you got Sko, Captain America, and then nobody. You don't even know where's the other characters. I think this is the fucking Skeletor guy. This is rotting Skeletor, but he's like way off to the side and behind a bunch of other guys. It's like, okay, who's supposed to be the most important here again? I don't fucking know.
And there's a guy teleporting, and it is I think he's the same one from this first page of the cover. And it's like, so is there a guy with teleporting powers? You know what's really sad? He kind of looks like fucking Mike S. Miller. Did Mike S. Miller draw a fucking self insert the same way that like this guy, the guy with the silly string powers is Richard C. Myers' self insert, of course. But I didn't think that Mike S. Miller would stoop to that either, because that's really sad.
Just one zombie on the fucking second wraparound that's just he's buried up to his neck in the fucking dirt. And it's like, I don't know, somebody pulled a funny prank on this zombie, I guess.
Lol,
I
I
don't know what
suppose.
else the fuck is going on here.
Your Honor, psych.
But
Um,
also, yeah, the teleporting guy, apparently his powers are to teleport, and then he just punches things. I mean, does he at least telefrag anyone? I'm going to make a bet with you right here because we still haven't read this. He telefrags nobody in this
no,
entire
because
comic.
first of all, that would be creative, and second of all, that would mean that the creators like played video games and were in any way inspired by them, whereas the people who made this comic have not played any video games and have no inspiration. They're like, ew, video games, you
They don't
freaking
read
kid.
manga. They haven't read like One Punch Man or My Hero Academia, but they have read tons and tons of shitty ass low quality Spider-Man comics.
Cape shit. Yeah,
The
the
worst.
fucking really bad Spider-Man comics, which
I mean,
fucking
why
there's
else?
a lot of them.
Otherwise, if your power is to teleport, why wouldn't you at least also have a knife or a gun or something? You know, what else do you do? You should have a weapon with you. Otherwise,
Do you just teleport
how about
yourself? Because
bombs?
yeah, if
Bombs or
so, you need a
grenades or
weapon.
explosives or something.
This second cover is also depressing in a lot of ways. The very much low IQ kind of way is it's got the
Blackwood.
whole sort of Marvel cover sort of
But
tag
yeah,
in the
that's
upper
the thing.
corner
It's
that
like the
and it
80s.
says 75 cents. They did not charge 75 cents. It's
No.
closer to $75 than 75 cents. Um, Approved by the Comics Great Authority, and it says
Why,
CG.
why don't they call themselves
How did
comic
that
relief?
age for you, by the way? That's fucking now that's funny, but it's funny in an unintentional way. If only they intended the fucking level of creativity that ended up being, but none of it's intentional, and none of that is ever going to be seen in any
This
book
shit looks
like
ugly
this.
too. There's just this whole thing of like the little character portraits that always looked stupid.
Yeah, the
The characters
disembodied
look
floating
stupid.
heads. It's like, oh, the faces of those you wronged will be floating up on left, and which is probably going to be actually true for Mike S. Miller,
Hopefully.
especially someday. But
But yeah, this is
these,
also clearly like somebody else drew somebody else did this cover. They got this as a commission, but they didn't tell them, here's who the important characters are. Here's the script. Here's the story. Here's how this matters. It's just like, just throw a bunch of shit up there.
yeah, just throw
Whatever. Who
people.
cares?
Just here's the
Just include
characters.
all the
Just throw them
characters.
on there.
Just
And
include all the
And
characters.
it,
It
it
doesn't
also
matter.
breaks one of the neophyte rules that people like Mike S. Miller are utterly unaware of is don't make your first book or don't make one of your earliest books a teen book. That's something that Richard C. Meyer fucked up. And of course, you can see in Jawbreaker's Lost Souls how it was a fucking a hilarious mistake where the story itself never had a chance. But the thing is, even if Jawbreaker's Lost Souls wasn't a team book, it still would have had absolutely no story or plot, and which you've seen now. We called that. We absolutely called that. But was then went on to be proven objectively. Once again, we were proven objectively right again. Again, how many times is it going to happen by all of his other comics that he's written afterwards, especially stuff like Pandemic, which didn't have a character in it, but also didn't have a story. They just had a series of visuals that they went through, and then the comic ends.
Series of meaningless visuals
Yeah,
that
a
led
series
to
of
nothing
visuals that carries no
from
meaning
nothing.
to each other or to an overall.
There's also this whole thing about the Blacklist universe. Really, how is it Blacklist universe, and what is
That is another
literally?
thing. But we may not even get into this comic just because of all the things to
There's
pick
not much.
apart. But
I have a feeling
that's
we're going to
part
be
of
able
the
to skim
Tom
through that
McDonald.
pretty
This is
fast.
very important. That's part of the whole Tom McDonald effect. Is that a lot of right wing people have to pretend that they're in some ways being blacklisted or censored when they're not. In fact, other people on the right wing usually are being targeted, censored, actually blacklisted, shadow banned in some other way. Whereas guys like Mike S. Miller have never been blacklisted at any point in their lives.
They've never
But he
had
has
to.
to
Yeah,
pretend that he
you can
is
tell
because he knows he gets attention for it, which is
he's
a
never had to
very
face
effeminate
adversity.
behavior on his part.
You can tell just
Mike
through
S.
the
Miller
work.
is basically
He's
half a
never had
fag.
to fucking spend a single moment in his life actually doing anything of difficulty,
Yeah, the only thing he's ever done in his life is cry victim and then do some gay little doodles.
and he's not good at that.
Yeah, he's not really a good artist, and he's also I listened to somebody linked to a stream from like 2018 where he actually legitimately started crying. Tears were shed, and he turned off his webcam because he was crying because he basically got made. A joke was made at his expense, and he started crying again. Mike S. Miller is one of the little faggiest bitches in the history of comics, except for the fact that in American comics, there's hundreds and hundreds of other incredibly faggy bitches. But Mike S. Miller is incredibly bitch made. He's not even a real man. He should just be wearing a skirt all the time. The way he's crying like a little bitch and fucking and whining and playing the victim. But also he was on this stream where he started crying and he started claiming that he was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna have money for food this month. And it's like, fucking, you're collecting royalty checks from DC Comics, you fucking faggot. He was actually fucking lying about being poor, not only crying about being censored when he wasn't. In fact, there's a very famous story that most people lie about in Comicsgate to this day is that he had a comic on Kickstarter and then pulled it and acted like he got censored. And he was like, dude, they censored me. They kicked me off of Kickstarter, but they didn't. And Richard even pulled that. And a lot of people in Comicsgate pushed that lie of like, oh, Kickstarter censoring us. Nobody used Kickstarter. So it was used to enforce ideological sameness in Comicsgate that nobody in Comicsgate was allowed to use Kickstarter, and if you used Kickstarter, they wouldn't promote your comics, with a few exceptions, but there are very limited exceptions, and it always got involved with people saying, well, it's on Kickstarter, so I'm not going to be backing him. Maybe if you do an Indiegogo, which there's a lot. The reason why Indiegogo was chosen was because, well, there's a lot of suspicious reasons, but one of them was the money that you get, the shipping costs were charged up front and added to the total you made. So you could charge people $100 for shipping, and then that would go onto your total, and you could say, look at all this money I got. We're making all this money, when it's money for shipping. And a lot of people in Comicsgate would take that money and actually pocket it and use not even half of it for the shipping. They would completely rip off their own backers, including Richard C. Meyer and Ethan would go with cheaper shipping. But more than that was like
one of their
there's
principles.
dozens of other stories of people in Comicsgate shipping without bags, shipping without containers of any kind, shipping in Ziploc bags, which apparently become acidic to the fucking the print ink. So again, there's just mistake after mistake after mistake with people just pocketing the money, and then people in Comicsgate just completely overlooking it and not saying anything about it.
Or throwing it into just a hollow box with no packaging material, so it gets banged around while it's being delivered.
Yeah.
And then it gets there all fucked up. And then the person who made the comic will be screaming, you're one of them, you're one of the SJWs, you did this on purpose so that you can make me look bad.
Yeah, if you pointed out, anyone who points out that happened would get called an SJW and would be attacked by Comicsgate, and would be like it could be somebody with like 5 followers on Twitter, but they would be immediately targeted by several people in Comicsgate, all making videos about that one person.
That's what they backed up. That's the behavior that they backed up.
Yeah, that is the behavior. That is the behavior that Comicsgate endorsed and actually paid for. So that's how you get comics like this made by people who pretend to be victims all the time, pretend that they're poor and don't have any money, and start crying and whining that they're not going to be able to afford to feed their families when they very much obviously can, and they're just lying compulsively. But also, at the same time, and more importantly, way more importantly than that, is that they will also just say, I'm a Christian, by the way. I'm a very strong Christian. I believe in the values of Jesus Christ. And so every single other Christian who hears that will immediately support. Like, this guy could fucking steamroll a flaming fucking garbage truck into a school bus full of children, and Christians will still be like, well, he said he's a Christian, so I know he's a good person. That happens every single time. Again, it's that Tom McDonald effect, but Christians fall for it, and always have historically for, hundreds and hundreds of years. More than any other type of person ever has or ever will. And that's where the whole 80s fucking televangelist scandal even came from, was Christians were openly endorsing and supporting public frauds and just scammers and people who really didn't give a shit. They were just taking your money and didn't give a shit. And it's going to keep happening, and it's probably going to keep getting worse too. And I'm fucking indifferent to people.
Christianity is the original J word.
Yeah, I'm indifferent to people losing all their money doing that. And not indifferent, I'm in favor of it. That's why we've always said, please, make sure if you support Comicsgate, if you support Ethan, please give him. Don't just pay for his comics. Don't just buy his comics, but buy as many of them as you can and pay as much as you possibly can, or possibly even more than you possibly can. Go into debt.
Accounts of your family, please do. If you have to. Fucking give more than the comic is valued at.
Yes. Empty your fucking bank accounts. Empty your pockets. Empty your wallets for these people.
Also, I mean, like, if fucking Jeffrey Epstein claimed to be a good Christian while he was in prison, a lot of these people would be like, oh, we can't We can't fucking throw him in prison. He needs to be let out. He
Hmm.
says he's a good Christian. That's the way these people behave.
Here,
Yeah, I'm looking at cover number, I guess it would be 3.
yeah.
It's the generic font again. And once again, there's only one
Yeah,
character that
clearly
seems to
copied
be
and pasted
actually
in,
prominent,
too.
including there's another character, the female character to the right here. We've seen her on none of the other covers.
This looks
She's not
traced.
there.
This straight up looks traced from another comic book cover.
That won't surprise me, but also
No.
it's like, again, who's the important character? Just by looking at this composition, who is supposed to be the
Yeah, who's important
featured
and what do they
character?
do?
There's Sko Captain America, and then a bunch of the characters just scattered around
Yeah,
the
some of them
edges.
are not
This
even
sniper guy we
identifiable
haven't seen
anymore.
before, I guess.
The guy
Who
with
is
the
he? We
fucking
don't
lightning
know.
silly string is only identifiable because he has a black shirt, but he's only identifiable really because of the lightning silly string. If it wasn't for that, I would be like, I don't know who this guy is, even though
Yeah,
we've just seen
there's
him
no
on
way
two
to
other
know.
covers.
There's really no way to know because these characters are so generic looking. This
Yeah.
guy with the red armor, it's like I think there was another guy with red armor before.
He's clearly just a ripoff of Deadpool too, but also a combination of some
He
other
looks
Rob
different.
Liefeld
He
characters.
doesn't even
Because
look
this
the
this
same.
cover's clearly trying to go for the whole we're bringing back the '90s, which by the way did not survive the year that this was fucking introduced. And in fact, it was really funny and also gratifying to see Metal Spoonie, also known as Razor Fist, essentially unwittingly parrot us by pointing out that '90s comics and the '90s era of comics is a shitty and very bad era of comics. And if you think the '90s era of comics is a good one to go back to, that's because you're incredibly low IQ. You're what Terry A. Davis would refer to as a no-brained N-word monkey. Accurately, I believe he would be describing that.
They are, in fact, the fucking a certain form of cattle. But yeah, they should. If you really believe that the '90s need to be brought back, give these people all of your
Yes,
money.
please
Give them
give.
so much
Yeah,
money. You need to drain the bank accounts of your family members, steal from them, take all their credit cards, and
sell
give all your
whatever
money to these
assets you
people.
have to donate to these people, to Ethan and Richard and fucking Mike S. Miller. Although a lot of these people now hate each other too, so it's funny to see a lot. In fact, we're going to go into the first page in maybe a few minutes, hopefully. But
Gonna be one of the worst things. It's just it's great how this already sucks, and
well,
it
it's
starts
also funny
even
how they
worse.
clearly thought this was cool, but looking at this, it's obviously retarded. But it's like, wow, you actually thought this was good? What's wrong with you?
But I mean, it's like a perfect signifier. Like you take this and you show this to somebody who's not into stupid, retarded cape shit gimmicks and '90s bullshit, and they'd be like, the first page, not even the first page, but the covers. But in particular, you just show them the first page, and you ask them, "Do you want to read any more of this?" You know the answer is no.
Would you pay money to read more of this? They would be like, no. And that not only is true, but that's what happened.
Not
The
just
only
no,
people who bought this
but
comic,
hell
as we
no.
said, it was the questionable content effect also, but as well as the Tom McDonald effect, both of those at the same time were just. But it's before Tom McDonald. It's what we said a couple of years ago is that the only reason these have had effectively zero sales. The only copies that these sold were people not looking to actually buy a comic book. They were looking to buy a movement. They were looking to buy an ideology.
They want it to be stolen from,
Yeah.
encrypted from.
In fact, if you told them, hey, you're getting ripped off, they would be like, fine, I want to be ripped off by this. They would admit it. They would just full on admit it. And it's like, well, all right, if you want to, that's fucking cool. That's good for us in a way because it leaves these people poorer because at least half of the money going towards these just goes towards printing and shipping. So that doesn't go towards the creators and it doesn't go back to in any way to the people who back this. The people who back this essentially get nothing. You will not get a comic that will ever be worth anything, but you also not get a comic that is interesting in any way to read. And I know people will convince themselves. There's always people with bad taste out there who are low IQ, who are very stupid, and who like things that are objectively bad. It's not a matter of taste, even, or it's not a matter of perspective. It's objective. That like the first Lone Star, as we reviewed it, had massive, hilarious continuity mistakes just in the first couple of pages, and that's when we knew that review and that comic was going to be fun. This, on the other hand, another thing that sucks about these covers is that they look gritty and violent and grim and all that stuff. And you open it up, you go to let's go to the first page.
Well, this is pretty gritty. This is pretty grim in the sense that it's like watching a rape victim being raped.
It's a retarded rape victim being raped with a fucking a plumber snake. But the thing is that the art on the covers goes from gritty, grim, dark to kind of cheesy and generic, and not very. Again, the art is not very good. I know people try to say that, oh, this art's actually excellent. He's a great artist, but he's really not.
This is terrible, ugly shit.
Anyways, the other thing that's really sad, it's really sad that they thought that this was funny or some kind of clever reference, but they put in a reference to Cecil, who is also known as Dick and Comics, who is a really painfully unfunny character who just ingratiated himself to the Comicsgate movement. So they had him around to pretend like, oh, we have funny people, but the thing is that I think even by this point, Nurkish had completely checked out. Nurkish was really the only funny person to be involved in any of this, and he really had no interest in being involved in
it goes to show
like
he was the only funny
Ethan.
person, and he decided he wanted nothing to do with Comicsgate. And as soon as he did that, Comicsgate was like, "No, you have to. You have to be."
I think we brought this up in the first review too. I know we brought this up in a bunch of other videos, but I think we brought this up in the first Lone Star review, is that what happened with Nurkish was that Ethan was paying people to do gay ops against Nurkish, where he was having people spy on Nurkish's Discord server to take screen caps, then send them to Ethan, which Ethan fully admitted this on stream, and we have the stream. A lot of people have the stream mirrored too, which Ethan tried to cover up the stream. But Ethan came out and admitted that he had people feeding him screen caps so he could use them against Nurkish. The thing is, he admitted this because he didn't think it was wrong. Ethan thought that there was nothing wrong with him doing this, and he knew that people would take his side. And he was right. People absolutely took his side. And
he doesn't think there's anything
fully admitting
wrong
to doing gay ops against somebody else that wasn't even really involved in Comicsgate.
It's not his concern that anything's wrong with it. He doesn't think it's wrong. He still doesn't think it's wrong. But he knows he'll get in trouble for admitting to it now.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he actually people started being like, wow, Ethan, you were doing ops against somebody else, and all of a sudden he completely flip-flopped his story. And the thing is that before that happened, before the flip-flop, so around like 2019, Mike S. Miller completely took the side of Ethan. If you asked him about Nurkish, Mike S. Miller would join Ethan in selling Nurkish down the river, essentially over what they agreed. Ethan Van Sciver and Mike S. Miller agreed was hate speech, essentially, as they referred to it. Now, I was actually on the Nurkish server, and I saw there was a bunch of jokes and stuff, so none of it was serious. But it got screen capped, sent to Ethan, and he basically said, this is hate speech, this is wrong, you have to disown this Discord server, you have to apologize, or else the SJWs will come after you and dox you, even though the SJWs didn't have his docs and had no idea who he was. And all of a sudden, the SJWs started getting fed information about Nurkish being a problem to Comicsgate. But Nurkish, again, wasn't really involved, and the Discord server didn't have anything that was really wrong. But when it comes to hate speech, there's two people that are really against it, and that's the SJWs and then suspiciously Comicsgate. very much against any kind of hate speech or even jokes that seem like hate speech. So as it came out, guys like Mike S. Miller fully took the side of the SJWs when it came to hate speech. Is that they're against it? They will attack it. Whoever is even accused of it, regardless of any weight to the accusation. All that matters is if somebody is not doing what Ethan Van Sciver said. That was another thing that Ethan and Mike S. Miller both admitted to, and is that if you're not doing what Ethan tells you to do, you have to go. They fully came out and admitted that in public. And again, Comicsgate not only ignored that, but they were like, yeah, hate speech is wrong. We should, we need laws against hate speech. We should be. Essentially, Comicsgate fully came out in favor of criminalizing hate speech, just in their own kind of way. But then at the same time, they'll pretend that they're against that sort of thing. They're like, ooh, there's no such. Well, they don't actually ever say that. We say that. We say there's no such thing as hate speech. And we did before Comicsgate existed. But then Comicsgate will act like the SJWs are against free. They're not in favor of free speech, but then when it comes to really being against freedom of speech, you got to look no further than people like crying Mike S. Miller, pretending that he then is being censored for his free speech when he wasn't, just falsely pretending that he was, and then also falsely pretending that he was poor because he was afraid that like people would refund his comic or something. And it's like, you already have so much money. First of all, you clearly have enough money to feed yourself and your family, but then you're going to pretend like you can't even handle refunds. It's very cowardly. But again, all this leads into the context. Cecil was one of the lapdogs who basically turned on Nurkish and then acted like Nurkish betrayed him instead. There's a lot of that, a lot of weird projection in Comicsgate where people will do something and then cry the opposite is being done instead. Or, they do something and then claim that it's being done to them instead. And again, that false narrative was always being upheld by the entire movement, not just the leaders, which they couldn't even admit that they had leaders, but then people would make decisions for the entire movement, and the movement would obey slavishly, as they are by nature. It was like sort of what Christopher Hitchens referred to as the desire to be a slave. Which is what a lot of people legitimately have, even when they say they're for freedom in any way. A lot of them will say they're for freedom. Like,
they talk a good game.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, they don't even talk a good game.
Well, there's also this epidemic among the right wing of people holding fake beliefs. In the right wing, there's a lot of people like that article about the Black Rifle Coffee Company was a really good one, and it was also very telling because it was essentially about that sort of thing. Again, the Tom McDonald effect, where a lot of these right wingers with absolutely zero talent will also then say, we're pro America, we're pro free speech, and then in practice they're anti-American. Mike S. Miller is overtly and publicly anti-American and anti-free speech through his actions, not through what he says. What he says is empty and hollow because it doesn't mean anything. But what he does in reality is that he will sell people out for having uncomfortable optics, for being not even being involved in things that have the uncomfortable. Like, again, Nurkish wasn't actually running this Discord, and he wasn't saying anything in this Discord server. Some people just were in the server joking, and Ethan Van Sciver was having spies constantly looking for stuff to screen cap to send back to get Nurkish in trouble. And eventually, Ethan, put that. It was essentially the first gay op in Comicsgate. Well, not essentially. It was the first gay op in Comicsgate.
It's the only new ground that they tread.
Yeah, it was the only thing that Comicsgate ever innovated in any way, was just finding some new way to do gay ops.
On their own side, in particular.
Yeah,
So
certainly. And
keep
again,
that in mind.
none of this effort that they spent into this kind of thing went into their comics. They put way more effort trying to dig up dirt on their own people, supposedly, than they even put into their comics. You can tell even by the art. This art is very lazy. Even the coloring is really often weird. Where the
It's not. It's unpleasant to look at.
yeah, it's that ugly cape shit style that's very boring and bland and just been played out, and nobody really
I mean,
wants to
again,
see any of it
think about.
anymore.
Let's compare this to. I don't know if you would even call it the competition, but My Hero Academia, you get the fucking characters right away. It's like it's a joy to be able to look at.
Yeah, it's incredibly easy on the eyes. It's fun to look at. It's got that fucking dynamic, cartoony, bizarre, interesting, fun, kind of
They're characters
quirky,
that you don't
ironically.
feel sick just glimpsing, as
Yeah,
opposed to
this looks
the
vaguely.
very
This looks
first
like it was
page
drawn
turn.
by somebody who had diarrhea at the time that they were drawing it, and they were vaguely queasy all the time.
And so they drew all their characters to look like that.
Yes. Anyways, so
Isn't also the one thing also I'm pretty sure is Cecil's the fucking guy who wears the stupid ass gay retard superhero masks on his
he's also
streams?
gay. He's also like blatantly and very overtly homosexual.
You can see
The thing
that. You
is
can see
that
that from here.
it's not part of the joke that they put him into stuff where he's like straight or a womanizer. It's that weird false narrative where people in Comicsgate actually think that Cecil is straight, even though you listen to him for 1 second and you know he's a giant mincing homosexual. He's a total fag.
He likes cape shit.
Yeah, well, first of all, no, because he's never liked comics before. There's a lot of people in Comicsgate who have never had any interest. They've never made a comic
Oh, most,
before. A lot of them don't even.
most
It's
everyone.
the that exact irony of what they say about SJWs. Like SJWs don't read comics. The fact is, a lot of people in Comicsgate don't read comics either, and never
Nobody.
did.
The fact is, nobody really reads comics. I look at the sales figures;
Yeah,
they've been a joke. The entire industry has been a running punchline for basically 20 years
and those
now.
sales figures aren't even real. Like fucking like if a comic sells 40,000, that's just 40,000 books stocked in stores. That's not how many they actually sold. Whereas with
They won't admit it either.
yeah,
So you don't
with
actually know.
manga
If it's
though,
like
it's like each
43,000
sale is direct and fucking counted
with
basically.
cape shit, it's like if it says it's 43,000, you can't even assume it's like, okay, that's 40,000 moved to the stores and 3,000 actual profit. It's like it could be 43,000 moved to the stores and zero.
Yeah, exactly. That again, that was something that I actually did learn from listening to Richard's videos, where he talked about what
You would
he
think you'd
called
be able to
effectively
apply
zero
that though.
sales.
If he already is the one telling us that, you would think he would already be able to acknowledge that when it comes to fucking comic book sales.
Yeah, and especially when compared to manga, which we are the first people to ever do a video about that, about the fact that manga sales were completely annihilating. We're also like the first people before then to mention it. We did the blog posts and shit about that back in 2015. We're like, yeah, manga like sales of Bleach crashed to a mere 7 million copies sold, and it's like that's probably more than all of the American comics
Yeah,
combined,
yeah,
except
that
for the like
dwarfs
the
the
top
American
three
comics
maybe.
industry.
Um,
The entire American comics industry is just it's so sad that it's funny.
Yeah. And the thing is, what they're trying to do here with comics like that is emulate that exact failed thing. It's like in the 90s,
It's like the
Marvel
worst
went
hit.
bankrupt and was
It's like
being
the
tossed
fucking
around by like toy company, by fucking trading card companies, toy companies. I think fucking WWE bought it at some goofy shit like that.
that's how
And
they
it's like they
act.
want to go back to emulating that, where
It's
Marvel
not
was
even
just being
that
thrown around back and forth by
It's not even
companies
that
that
they're
didn't give a
getting
fuck
bossed
about it.
around or anything like that. It's like you would never see this happen with a TV network or a movie studio because they actually have self-respect.
Yeah, to
No
some
fucking
degree,
comic
even though they
industry
shouldn't.
has any self-respect
Hmm.
except for manga. Manga, they know that they fucking make money.
Hmm. Anyways, just scrolling through this, going on, it's like, oh, the girl's
He's got
startled, and
special
then there's a
case shirt.
monster.
He's wearing a special case shirt because he's apparently a big fan of ketamine.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's. I
And
guess
yeah,
that's a reference to that. Is that
that's
clever or
also the thing.
something? I
Here's
don't know.
another great, brilliant part is like the fucking this hooker he's trying to rape is like, oh, you need to stop now. But there's no indication that she says she heard something, but there's clearly no indication of a sound effect. So it sounds like she's just fucking making it up to get
She's
away from him
hallucinating.
because he's pretty gross. He is repugnant as fuck.
But also, she teleports away. Like he leaves the car, and then there's just a monster. And it's like,
Well,
so is she
it
gone?
breaks the 180 rule big time.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the very least, with the next page, there is the hope and promise that he gets ripped apart by this monster. So that's the one positive. I'll give it this. At least it's looking up already so far. That the dumbest fucking unfunny moron in Comicsgate who needs to just go away,
Like
just cease to
he's a
exist.
painfully unfunny guy, but he's also the guy that they need to keep around because he's a complete bootlick. That's the only reason why they kept him around at all. But at the same time, they needed him to pretend like they have fun. Like, oh, they would have he would say something that wasn't funny, and then they would all force a really pained laugh. And that was another thing that I noticed from listening to that old stream is every time he would say something, they would try really hard to laugh, and sometimes it wouldn't even work. They would just like, oh god, 'cause nobody fucking can even force a laugh sometimes when it's just not funny at all. Um, but the thing
That's
is,
par for the
it was
course for
also
them.
based on that false narrative of the where we're all no one's having more fun than us. Essentially, the
It's
people
like
who are desperate to
it's just
project
like in
the
Casino.
illusion of having fun are
It's like
always going to be the ones who are forcing laughs the most
well, in
and
particular,
pretending that
they're
they have
looking
the
at
funny
us.
guys
We're
around.
having a fun time, and they're looking at us from their table, and they're like, they're having a fun time. And then they look at each other and like, so are
So
we.
we do whip it good.
But
Anyways,
they're saying it very bitterly, almost like they're lying.
so the next page is Captain America ripoff. Very lazy, generic
This
Cap.
one
It's
is
like the most
so
generic.
great
There's
at
been a
how
lot of
shitty this
ripoffs of
looks.
fucking Captain America that were really bad and lazy. This is by far the most lazy and generic ripoff of Captain America. They wouldn't even sue. Like they sued Rob Liefeld because Rob Liefeld made a ripoff that was so blatant that it was like okay, we have to make it so you can't have a round shield and he can't throw the shield. He
Yeah, they
actually
took him to
Rob
court.
Liefeld had to be stopped from doing
The
that in his
judge had to
comics.
fucking make that fucking call. The judge and the lawyers were like, okay, here's what you can't do with your fucking ripoff. It's like, we can't allow you to do this, so we gotta stop you. We gotta fucking actually make a ruling. In this case, no one will
Yeah,
ever
no one will
notice.
do this because it's just the most bare bones laziest. You could see that in other Mike S. Miller comics though, is that his other ideas are very obviously ripped off of other people's IPs that came first. Like he did one that was just straight up The Incredibles, but without the specific unique superpowers. They had some superpowers, but they were so generic and so undefined. Like like in The Incredibles, you could identify the kids by their specific superpowers. You could identify the husband by his super strength. The wife had the stretchy fucking Mr. Fantastic powers. And then Mike S. Miller did a blatant ripoff of it where it was just like the kids have superpowers. The mom and dad have superpowers. Like what kind? It's like the superpowers, and that's it. But anyways,
They have the powers to have all the powers they
yeah, they
want. I
have
don't
the
care.
power to have powers. The speaking of the power to have powers, something that wasn't
You know, that's
established
actually
in
also the thing is we read the fucking first fucking Lone Star. We read the fucking first one, and I realized something looking at this page now. I had no idea what his powers were even
yeah,
supposed
that's
to be,
that's what
other
I
than
was
that he
just
was
about to
super
say is
strong.
just discovering here is like, oh, he can be shot a bunch of times because that never happens anywhere in the entire first, like your first fucking issue of your new comic should
First thing you
tell
learn.
you about the character.
Think about Batman. The first fucking the 1989 Batman shows up. He fights some fucking ninja guys, and
Hmm.
we learn like a whole bunch about him and just
He's got
about his
gadgets, he's
abilities, his
rich,
powers, his
his parents were
tools.
killed. Yeah, you learn all this stuff about him, but the first issue of fucking Lone Star doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you his
Entire
powers.
first issue.
I mean, I assume
The
he's
whole
just
thing.
getting machine gunned to death here, but I assume he's getting machine gunned by this car because he's getting shot and then he attacks a
Yeah,
car or
he's
something.
already
He's
behind the
lifting up the
car.
car.
On top of that, though, on the top of that, why is he getting shot at all? The only reason is because the car would be shooting him. Because otherwise, why are you standing out in the open like that? If you don't, if you think you're going to get shot, you won't be doing that.
Yeah,
You just,
you're
you
not
just
just
aren't.
not taking cover at all, and
It's
then
in it. It reads exactly like that in the first panel. He's just standing out there absorbing bullets. His goggle is broken, so he's taken a bullet to the fucking skull.
to the
Why?
eyeball. I hopefully it blew
And
out
and
his
I
fucking
can only
eyeball.
think
That would be kind of funny.
it is because he is so dumb. The
Yeah.
character is retarded.
Yeah, he just stands there getting shot. And it's like, really, that's it? You're just gonna stand there getting shot?
Are you stupid? And the answer is yes.
Um, but also here, it's a bunch of gangstas all shooting at him. They're holding their guns upright though, and for some reason, like two of these guys are white. Two
Yeah,
of the hands
the
are white.
two guys in the front are white, and it's like these aren't gangstas then,
Oh, they're
because
white.
otherwise they wouldn't be allowed in that
Yeah,
gang.
gangsters are pretty much ethnically defined. They
Yeah, they're
define
fucking very.
themselves ethnically, willingly, of by their choice.
They must
Um,
be the globalists I've heard so much
but
about.
also, fucking something I think literally stolen out of the Deadpool movie is he
Yeah,
gets the timeout thing from behind the
yeah,
car and says, "Can I bend your ears for a minute?" Right here is where like
massive
if
tonal
I had
shift.
paid for this comic, I would get a refund at this point.
Yeah,
I'm very
gigantic,
tempted to just fucking stop it here.
just an offensive tonal shift
Yeah,
at this
this
point.
is fagfully retarded, painfully unfunny, but also unoriginal because again, it's completely stolen from the Deadpool movie, and it was one of the weakest jokes in the Deadpool movie. In this, it's fucking, it's just really gay. Um,
Here's another huge continuity, a huge continuity flaw, just like in the first issue in the next page. We have to bring this up. In fact, I'm thinking this, we're gonna finally be able to start the review now. Maybe we should separate
I don't
this.
know. I'm about ready to fucking end the review because I'm tired of reading this comic
Yeah, no, I
already.
need to get up actually.
Um, but yeah, here, yeah, I'll just keep going, I guess. But he says, "I'll give you some time to reload. What are you boys doing?" I don't know what this fucking. Did he think that was good dialogue? Or did he think that was just at least placeholder dialogue? Did he think, here, I have to have this dialogue, so I'll just put this in. This will look really stupid, but maybe I'll come up with something better. Or did he think like that this is good quippy? Like a lot of people who write American comics, they're trying to be sort of like Brian Michael Bendis. Bendis speak is what it's also referred to as, where it's this really embarrassing forced attempt at smart, quippy, wisecracking dialogue to show that your main character is actually he's a really smart guy, as opposed to what we just saw him just standing there getting shot, going "Ew," like he's trying to fucking shit an actual uh, um, a fucking 80s cell phone. But then he goes, "What are you boys doing?" After it seems kind of obvious, and there's a kid with him, and he goes, "I'm sure you have great reasons for being out here trying to kill one another, but is it really worth it? Well, let me tell you what's really going on here. And then there's like just text floating here, which is either narration or there's too much text and he couldn't fit it like into a word bubble, so he just threw it onto the page here. There's some fat rich cartel boss in a foreign country sitting by his. I don't know. Fucking again. I'm already completely checked out. Your writing is so bad. The thing is that we would know because we're fucking experts at this. We're fucking like our standards are so fucking high that a comic even 10 times better than this I wouldn't want to fucking read. The only reason why we're reading this is because we're doing it sort of as payment to people. It's sort of trolling for hire or comic reviewing for hire. Either way you want. Could be both, actually. Is that we're doing this as a sort of form of payment to somebody. Otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't have even gotten past this. I wouldn't have gotten to this point because I did try reading this before. As did my brother. We looked at it and got to the first page and it's like, no, I don't think I'm going to find. If we review this, it will just be the first page. But when we were told, hey, if you review this comic as payment, for this thing, and it's like, oh, for payment of coloring like the other half of a comic that we're putting out. So it's like, okay, well that won't be the whole payment. I'll fucking give the guy money, but even getting this far, I think is asking a lot from us.
That's why I would make this two separate videos.
We could, but here's the thing: this is Shittywebcomics Weekly episode. So if we do that, it'll just be to stretch this out to so that next week we'll have the next part of this, and then the week after that we'll do Lone Star 2.
I want this over with as soon as possible, but we're only at page 10.
Yeah, only page 10 of 32. Here's the thing, though. We're not gonna go through the whole thing because then that would be like, oh no, you're reviewing, you're revealing the comic. It's showing your comic, and it's like, ugh.
No, we're fucking,
that kind of gay shit.
We are revealing the whole comic right here.
I'm sure Mike S. Miller would love to pull a Liam Gray. But yeah, here's the thing. We've already reviewed this entire comic. It's really bad. Has some of the worst writing already. It's devoid of character. There's not going to be a part after this that informs us about the characters in any way that's even remotely interesting.
Only improve.
It doesn't improve upon a blank screen, and it also not just that we know this from what we've read so far, but from Lone Star, which was the actual comic about this character. We read the Lone Star comic, and it doesn't inform in any way about the character. So it's obvious that this won't either. But even if it did, it would be for really low IQ readers. I've seen people who support this kind of comic, and this comic specifically, and they're all incredibly stupid people with bad taste in art and entertainment, but also in comics too. So, when you make a comic that appeals to the lowest scum common denominator, the lowest IQ, the most effeminate people who all act like they're tough alpha males but are effeminate crying faggots all the time.
To merely call them stupid would actually be that would actually be a positive. It would be a benefit.
Yeah, they don't even rise to the level of stupid. They're anti-thinking. When they fucking talk, they take IQ points away from other people. Everyone in this room is now dumber.
They engage in criminal behavior,
to say.
And they're doing all of that just for shitty, low-rent comics that they hope will make them instantly rich with no effort. I mean, it's the least respectable viewpoint that anyone can hold, and they hold it.
And it was, here, I speculated that there wasn't this guy, fucking Mike S. Miller, is so incompetent and at comic books. It's supposed to be his main thing, but he's not even competent enough to have proper amount of space for the dialogue. So he just threw the dialogue up on the page and he can't fit a word balloon, so he doesn't make one. And he's saying there's a fat rich cartel boss in a foreign country, blah, 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 manipulated the youth in this country to go to war with each other. It's almost like he's naming them, but then he's not actually naming them. In fact, it's like a misdirection of not having the balls to actually name them and say, Oh yeah, the problems in this country. Let me tell you, it's a fucking guy in a certain foreign country. His first name is George, and his last name starts with an S, and it's Salieri. It's the Italians. Like, what were you talking about? Just fucking. That's basically what Mike S. Miller's doing. Is like you can't even fucking go that far out there. It's over nothing, and it's like, even in that sense, it wouldn't be over nothing. It would be over an attempt to sort of manipulate. You see, in real life, it's not over nothing. It's over an attempt to weaken America for for the usual usury and that sort of thing, subversion of the American people. Some might even say the a specific type of people in America that that have a grudge held against them by foreign influences, something like that. And I would go out and say that too, but not on YouTube. Especially not these days. We've been shadow banned before everyone in Comicsgate combined. Really, you fucking take when
We're the
they've been
real
shadow
deal.
banned, which is none of them. None of them have ever been shadow banned. Especially not Mike S. Miller. He's never been blacklisted, shadow banned, or kicked off of anything. He just pretends that he is for attention. But people like us who do get shadow banned uh, also understand how to fucking play the game at some point. So yeah, if not
We had
naming
to
them, I
fucking
don't
get
really
better.
blame anyone, but don't pretend like you're going to and then don't.
We started off better, but we still had to grow. These people never had to want a glass of water, and they never had to get better either because they're basically this is essentially the form of like comic book welfare. It's just cry victim and then just
Yeah.
pull in the money.
And that's what Comicsgate was from the start. Comicsgate from the very beginning was crying victim and then fucking boohoo, give me money. Give me money because I'm a victim, not give me money because my comics are good, because of course they're not. But again, here's another thing that's really stupid is so he gives them all a talking to and walks away and goes, "But if you don't, you deal with me." And it's like they wouldn't just keep shooting him. Of course they would. That would be fuck. I would turn everything around and say Mike S. Miller's actually a really funny, interesting, creative creator and writer if they immediately started shooting him. But
Yeah,
no, of
just
course,
open
it
fire,
just
which I
cuts to
should
the
have.
next scene.
But in particular, this is the plot hole I was talking about. Is like this girl comes out of nowhere. She just teleported. There's no indication she was ever there to begin
Yeah,
with.
we see behind the car, there's nobody. There's nobody behind this car, and then he fucking time out and then comes out with a kid that teleported from the Immaterium, apparently, because they were not there here. So again, that's the end of this fucking review. We
But
have
the
just finished
implication is
our
that she was
review.
there. The
Mike S.
key
Miller is
thing is that
completely
the
incapable of
belief that
writing.
she was already there and that he's now leading her away from the gunfire that she was already in the path of. And then he said, just like in the fucking first issue, the issue we already reviewed, where he knocks a gun out of a woman's hand
And
and
then
then
tells her
tells
to get a
her,
gun.
"You need to go get a gun." He's like, he's rescuing this child from all this gunfire, and he's like, "If you're doing that, you're gonna have to deal with me." And then he just leaves.
Yeah,
Why
and,
is
and
he
they don't keep shooting him. They're
shouldn't
like
he be
fucking.
dealing with them? He said he was going to deal with them if they put innocent lives in danger. Do you think that hasn't already happened?
They just did. So when are you going to deal with them then? You already did
No.
it. Time to deal with them. But no, I guess not.
And yeah, they should have just not only opened fired on him, but her too.
Yes,
Just
fucking
reduce
shoot
them
him,
to
shoot her, shoot the car, shoot up the fucking whole everything.
chunks.
Yes, fucking salsa-ize them. But yeah, this is a dumber continuity flaw than the one in fucking than in fucking Lone Star #1, where yeah, he fucking slaps the gun out of the woman's hand and tells her she should get a gun. Um, but yeah, there's again, we're seeing behind the car. There's no one there. There's nothing there. It's just him lifting up the car, and then he pulls a fucking child out of no.
Down the
He
street.
summoned them. Is that one of his powers to do that with his mind? No, it's not.
You see down the street. That's actually the thing is in
Yeah,
the
all the
previous
way down the
page.
street.
You can see all the way down the street in both directions. There is no one.
So again, just on accident, we have found a continuity flaw that This comic's been out for years. Nobody else has ever noticed this. Not even
It came
other
out, yeah.
supposed critics of Comicsgate, by the way.
Yeah, the SJWs didn't, but also their own side didn't ever step up and say, "Hey, this is a problem. You should fix this.
Yeah,
This isn't.
or
This
look
is
at this
broken."
stupid incompetence they put out where it's like he's alone behind the car, but then he pulls out a child from out of nowhere. Where was he
At no
keeping the
point,
kid? In the gas tank?
no one ever fucking in Comicsgate, nobody ever fucking came to Mike S. Miller, and he never went to anyone on his own side and said, here's the script, here's the comic, review it, tell me what you
Or
think.
like,
Do
here's
you
the
see
pages
any
I got so
problems?
far. Tell me what you think. And they're like, where? And nobody said where the fuck did this child come from when you drew a fucking empty space right here, where there's clearly no child.
It's our introduction to the main
Yes,
hero.
it's the introduction to the hero, and you've already introduced a fucking giant continuity flaw after you've done that before. You know why
That's
that
annoying.
happens? Because the person creating the comic has no clue how to tell the story or fucking in any way create a fucking comic book, really. Except by drawing some
And then
visuals
just
that don't mean anything.
and
And
then he
that's
just
not even
walks
getting
past
into
them.
having the hero give them a speech and act like it means
Yeah,
something.
just
It's like they'll
lecturing
tell the
them
gang
while walking
members,
off.
give the gang members a speech. They'll a stern talking to will turn them around. Who believes that except for a literal retard with possibly literal retard making seed?
Yeah, the most coddled little baby bitch who busts out into a cry.
Literally shedding tears on a stream just because he was criticized a little bit. Not even about his comic, but just about in fucking real life. Where
Because he deserves it. He deserves to be criticized, but he cannot fucking handle it.
you know what the funny thing is, in that stream he was being criticized because he's such a thin-skinned bitch that he spent an entire day arguing with a guy who apparently has fucking brain damage from being a military veteran, and Mike S. Miller was just spending all day on Twitter yelling at the guy. It's like he's a fucking military veteran with apparent brain damage, so they were saying. I don't fucking know. I don't know anything about the guy that they were talking about. But Mike S. Miller clearly was not going to rise above for even 1 second. And it was just Doug who was like, you don't. There's no point in arguing with that. There's no point arguing with like going after and targeting a smaller creator. It was another creator who is not only a military veteran, which Mike S. Miller is not and never would be, but that that also that fucking like he has some kind of mental problems, and it's like, why are you gonna just go attack this guy and of course get the rest of Comicsgate to join in with you and attack the guy when you are in the wrong too. Mike S. Miller was in the wrong and then continued to be in the wrong. That's why Christians, uh, a lot of them will actually be going to hell. Like Jesus personally will be escorting them down to the fucking sulfur gates or whatever as he waves us in. Me and my brother are going to be just sort of fucking we're going to be healing our way into fucking heaven, just fucking skating in.
I'm going to kick open the pearly gates.
Yeah, and fucking
You don't have to.
moonwalking through while fucking people like Mike S. Miller will not even
I'm going
he'll
to
not even be
fucking
seeing the pearly gates. He'll be halfway up and they'll be like, no. It'll be like in
plant a
the
boot heel
Frighteners where a bunch
through
of
the lock
demon
of the
worms just
pearly
eat him.
gates and just moonwalk through, and they're just going to have to sit there and take it.
Yeah, they're just gonna have to take it. We're not even Christians, and we will be going to heaven before any of these actual Christians do.
They'll have to invent a heaven.
Yes,
They'll have to
a
invent an
heaven
actual
above the regular gay boring heaven, where you get to fucking have VR games all the time. Half-Life Alex comes out with a sequel every
Half-Life
year,
3.
and you
We
have
finally
infinite
get,
VR
you know what
goggles.
we get in our heaven? Half-Life 3, which is an open world sandbox.
Yeah,
It's like,
Half-Life 3 will become a fucking. It will not only be a game, it will be a fucking full-on sandboxed MMO, fully online all the time with zero ping, it'll be like VR, but you're actually living it for
and it'll be
real.
the size. The game world will be the size of actual Europe.
Meanwhile, Mike S. Miller, I don't know what the punishment is for pathological, compulsive, unrepentant liars is, but that's gonna, whatever that is, that's what they'll be doing to Mike S. Miller
Well, I
for
mean,
all
I've
eternity.
heard
Why you would actually believe that, I don't know. Uh,
supposedly hell has a special place for traitors. What would you call somebody who is sabotaging their own side just for their personal gain?
yeah, or for backpats, for basically internet PP touches, so to speak.
Would that be worth some betrayal juice?
Some sort of special juice. So, anyways, yeah, fucking like I even skimmed the next page here, and it's like I've already checked out. We've discovered a hilarious, not just the continuity flaw, but then again
Obviously,
this cloying, retarded, gay little moralizing speech is supposed to work in any way against gangbangers that were just
sociopathic,
shooting
yeah.
at him a few seconds ago.
I'm basically done with the comic at this point. I
Yeah.
can't even pay attention to anything that
We
happens.
don't need a
It's
part
so
two of
boring
this.
now.
We do not need a part two of this. But for those of you wishing we would do the rest of this or more of this, next week will be Lone Star 2 at least. And I'm hoping we find another gigantic, hilarious continuity flaw in that. But most likely, to be honest, I don't think we can go 3 for 3. There will probably be a huge continuity error in it somewhere in the comic, but I'm not even sure if we're going to read that far into it.
It's so boring.
Yeah, so boring, so gay. Um, anyways, yeah, so that wraps up this. Once again, this review brought to you by our Subscribe Star backers, and of course, in special occasion, is brought to you as payment for work on our comics. Again, if you are willing to do fucking comics for us, a page or something, or I don't know, something with comics in exchange for reviewing a comic, I guess ask us. I don't know. We'll do all sorts of things, but again, it is still painful to do shit like this. This sucks.
Are we going to be, wait, hold on, because are we going to be reviewing this anymore? Because I get to page 17, and
Oh,
there's like a subtitle for the fucking
all right. You know what?
the
Here,
chapter
let
or
me
something,
just
and it's like
fucking.
unknown soldiers, and it's like, isn't this already called Monster Hunt? And it's only one issue. It's a issue one of one. So why the fuck is there another fucking subtitle for the fucking story?
Oh god, this actually is Mike S. Miller. He drew himself in this comic into his fucking super team. But who are these guys? And who cares? I don't fucking give a shit.
Is that why it looks like a
I
cunt?
joined the rest of the world in not caring about who these people are.
Yeah,
Um,
if anything, we need to fucking rejoin the rest of the world in no longer
yes.
giving a fuck
Yeah, it's
what
like,
these
okay,
characters
yeah,
are.
wait, page 17, Unknown Soldiers, created by Mike S. Miller. Is that the name of the super group or something? Or is this, like, it's another comic just started? I don't know. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I don't know what this is or why it's here, but it's worthless. It's a single page panel. It's like
Well, it was
way
worthless
to
long
waste your
before
reader's
this, of
time.
course.
Wasting your reader's time and money
Yeah, look at
with a
this.
fucking single page fucking
Also, this
panel
chick here,
for
the
nothing.
next page, this chick looks like she's wearing high heels except without the heel part. So what's with these shoes? What the fuck kind of shoe is this?
It's a
Is that just so
fucking
you could tell she's a chick, or it's part of her design? It looks stupid, but then again, so
everyone
does
else is wearing
everything
like
else in this
body
comic.
armor, and then she is dressed like a literal stripper. She doesn't belong there,
A dumb
clearly.
ass hooker ain't nothing but a dyke. Anyways, all right. So again, wrapping up.
Also, yeah, I don't know who the fuck these characters are. I don't care.
No,
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. I'm out of
maybe
patience.
that is
I ran out
that's
of
supposed to be
patience.
the name of this superhero team. So he did yet another superhero team. They're called the Unknown Soldiers, and it's like so you're you might as
They
well
sure
call
are.
them the generic shooty persons or
This
something.
fucking comic violated the first page rule, the second page rule, the third page rule, the
The
fourth page
fucking
rule.
first, yeah,
I am
the
beyond
10-page
done.
rule, the 180 rule, the several continuity rules, and then
Don't
also
put
the
gay fucking masked LARPers in your comic rule.
yeah, just a bunch of like it's a comic made by cowards about guys who are supposed to be brave, but the characters are all cowards because they're created by cowards in real life, like Mike S.
They
Miller
have
and
to fucking,
guys
yeah,
like
they don't have to worry
guys
about
like the
being
rest of
shot
them.
by guns. Although one guy in the fucking the first issue of fucking Rune Star, fucking he just gets killed. He like gets bitten by a vampire or some shit,
Lol.
and he just gets killed.
No,
And it's like I don't. Then I guess we aren't supposed to care about that person anyway, and we sure didn't.
I sure didn't. Yeah, that's right. I remember some of that shit.
So did we get our fucking our fucking
Did we
secret
get
guns?
our money's worth on that one?
Did we get our guns? Did we get our money's worth? We didn't pay anything for this shit, and I still feel ripped off.
Yeah, I fucking expected nothing, and I was still let down. Here, we'll wrap up with this. A nice little screen cap of this fucking hilarious tweet from August 1st, 2018. Mike S. Miller saying, "The Lord gave Ethan Van Sciver and I this prophecy, Jeremiah 2011. But the Lord is with me, like a dread champion. Therefore, my persecutors, more like persecutors, will stumble and not prevail." They will be utterly ashamed because they have failed with an everlasting disgrace that will not be forgotten. A couple years after this, Ethan Van Sciver turned against Mike S. Miller and kicked him out of the movement. And Ethan has thrived, whereas Mike is now fucking floundering.
I mean, they're both floundering. It's just that one of them's floundering harder.
Well, and also one of them is spending a lot of money to cover up how they're fucking sort of
But
disappearing
yeah,
into
go and
nothingness.
also go ahead and show this to any Christian. Do you Christians actually are you comfortable with this? Just saying that God is personally talking to this stupid ass Cape cuck, and that's what God is concerned
To a
about. He's not
moral
concerned about
coward,
the
and
suffering of the
also look at
world. He is
the
concerned
support that
about
it
bringing
got from
back the
people too.
'90s.
Like if you supported this kind of behavior in any way, you not only aren't you can be a Christian, but you don't actually believe in anything. Although that's not really out of the ordinary for Christians. Most Christians don't actually believe in anything, not even God or Jesus or any of that stuff. Certainly not the teachings of Jesus. But anyways, so as far as we go, though, give us money on Subscribestar for just for the weekly videos will always be free, but there's a bunch of extra videos behind the paywall. As we continue to make and shape history, you can do your part in spreading the word that Shitty Webcomics is back at it, creating the opinions that everyone else will be saying
Going
by
away
next
either.
year, as already proven years ago.
People think that we're going to be going away. We'll never be going away.
Well,
The rest
people
of you
said we would be
people will be
going away
going
like
away.
in 2013, 2014, 2015, and then
Well,
again in
earlier than that,
2016
even.
and 17 and all that stuff.
But
And
the key thing is also this is like the very beginning. It's like it's like getting in on the ground floor. It's
yeah,
like finding about Sam Hyde just before he did fucking $1 million Extreme World Peace.
yeah, or finding out about Bitcoin before it fucking blew up and thinking, maybe I'll just buy maybe I'll buy a Bitcoin so I own a Bitcoin, yay, and then you would have fucking like tens of thousands of dollars. It's dipping right now, but I mean, I'm kind of indifferent to fucking crypto myself, but I do have some. Um, but anyways, yeah, the fucking what happened is last year, the stuff we were saying, now everyone else is saying this year, and the same for the year before that and the year
It's
before
happening.
that, all the way back to the beginning of the blog. I mean, before then too, but the beginning of the blog was when we basically created all of the principles and tenets that people pretend to hold. A lot of them don't, but most of them at least pretend to. What we were saying then, now everyone else is saying. So if you want to be in on the ground floor of what everyone else will be saying later, check us out and subscribe to us, support us on Subscribestar, or at least share our videos around, that kind of thing. Because again, as we have been shadow banned for many reasons, some of them are part of the inherent YouTube algorithm of just shadow banning people who get
Silencing
on the wrong
interesting
side of
people.
things,
If
but
you want to
also
hear
being false
interesting
flagged many
people, an
times
interesting voice for once.
by people in Comicsgate who openly support false flagging and then say that they don't, that kind of thing. As proven, like that's not my opinion or my supposition throwing out there. That's something that they've actually proven several times. Um, anyways, but you'll if you give us money on Subscribestar, you can check out a bunch of our cool, super secret, unlisted videos that have already changed your life, even if you don't know it because you're a dumb nerd. Um, also, you can go to our Curious Cat to recommend a webcomic for us to mention or cover or even plug if you want. Until then, though, as your masters say to each other behind your backs, should have listened to Shitty Webcomics.